Good morning, good morning, good morning. So I want to welcome everybody that is on Zoom, everybody that is on Facebook, and everybody that is on YouTube. Welcome. Someday you're going to be back in the room with me. Well, at least some of you. I suspect my friend from Canada will still be joining us on Facebook because the commute's a little much. All right, so let's get started this morning with our opening songs. Good morning again. Welcome to Sierra Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Reverend Rafe Ellis, and I am so honored to be the senior minister here at Sierra Center for Spiritual Living. So again, I want to welcome everybody on Facebook, on Zoom, and on YouTube. And I want to remind us of who we are and share with all of our guests who we are. Here at Sierra Center for Spiritual Living, we are a radically inclusive, spiritually progressive, supportive community that celebrates the very diversity of creation. We strive to live authentic spiritual lives through a practical application of the teachings of science of mind. We engage in sacred practices that uplift our spirit, ignite our soul's self-expression, and deepen our awareness. We demonstrate active compassion to ourselves, to one another, and the world. We experience meaningful contribution through giving generously of our time, talents, and treasures, and we intentionally promote our community and our teachings. And if you're watching this on any social media platform, one of the ways that you can participate in sharing our teaching is by sharing this live stream on your individual page. So one of the things that we do to demonstrate our inclusivity is we have an inclusion candlelighting ritual that we do every Sunday morning. And we light these candles to celebrate the unity of all peoples, all faiths, all beings, all life. We light the first candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the ways of primal spirituality. We light the second candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the third candle for Taoism, honoring the path of ultimate reality, the natural way. We light the fourth candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. And we light the fifth candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the middle way and path of compassion. See if I can get out of the way here. We light the sixth candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the teachings of Jesus as the path of love, forgiveness, and healing by the presence within. We light the seventh candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We light the eighth candle for the religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the ninth candle for all forms of New Thought teachings, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles of love and law. We light the 10th candle for absolute inclusivity, affirming that all are welcome and celebrated here. And we light this final candle, honoring the infinity of oneness as all creation, seen and unseen. And so now it's time for our next community song, and I invite you to jump in with all the enthusiasm that you can. Let your neighbors hear how engaged and uplifted you are this morning. Here we go. indeed, love is why we're here. We'll talk more about that shortly. So before Sandy, one of our board members, addresses us, I just want to remind folks of how incredibly grateful I am that we have continued to sustain this center and navigate the changes of this new reality that we find ourselves here in this physical realm. I was speaking briefly with Kate this morning when she brought in flowers for our altar, and I miss you guys. I miss you deeply. And I know that you're right there. And someday you're going to be right back in here. So here's a message from Sandy Schilling.
Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am Sandy Schilling Fetterman, and it's my honor to serve as the Vice President of your Board of Trustees. I'd like to tell you all how much I have missed seeing you on Sunday mornings. Those hugs and those smiles and the laughter have just been missing, and I miss you. You don't know how many times those laughs have gotten me through some rough places in my life. We're a real family here at Sierra Center. And for those who are visiting today, I want you to know you are most welcome here. Being a board member and part of the Finance Committee for several years, I have witnessed the ebb and flow, but I have to say nothing has hit us as hard as this pandemic. Our center still needs to run like any other business, with all the usual bills that have to be paid and the salaries. So I'm asking you this morning to give what you can, because every bit helps. And I also want you to know that we are a tithing center. So each month, a percentage of what we receive goes back out into our community with our community partners that are helping you in other ways. So thanks again, and many blessings to you all.
Thank you, Sandy. I have a report that it's fun to watch you be so animated on Zoom as you sing along. So thank you for that. I have spies in the different platforms watching you. So let's say our giving intention affirmation together. Here we go. I give this gift with love and joy from a consciousness of abundance. Divine love blesses and prospers all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. And so this is our time of inward shift. And so I invite you, wherever you are, unless you're driving, and then please don't minimize your distractions. Please pay attention to what you're doing. But if you're seated and in a safe space, I invite you to minimize where your attention is and allow it to go inward. If you're comfortable, close your eyes, soften your gaze, and just allow yourself to go inward. Our practitioner this morning, Deborah Ellis, will bring us out of the meditation with our opening spiritual mind treatment and our affirmation. As you drift more deeply inward, invite your inner self to contemplate these words. No one can rob me of the freedom
to choose my next thought. While I don't always have the ability to change or control other people and events, I can choose to change my thoughts and perceptions about people and events. In this powerful way, I am in charge of my life experience in every holy moment.
Allowing your next breath to be a little bit deeper than the one before. Just breathing in the magnificence and the love and the beauty and the power and presence that is moving and expressing, connecting all of life, knowing itself exquisitely as all of life, all that is seen and all that is unseen. It is love, it is peace, it is joy, deep and abiding. And I move and have my beingness in this breath that is connecting me to all of life. So grateful this morning to know this truth and to speak the word this morning, claiming and affirming that the mighty river of love is flowing, uniting, connecting, expressing, knowing itself in greater and grander ways. I'm accepting this morning that all needs are met in this river of love, this mighty love that gives freely without restriction. It knows no bounds. It knows no withholding. It is this unity and harmony that is bubbling back of all of life, this exquisite and grand day, this morning and beyond. So, so grateful to be flowing in this river of love. And I accept that this is even greater than I can speak this morning, is knowing such grandeur, such light and love. It is this one. And so I simply just wrap it all in the glory and love that is present here and release into that activity of love and law and simply just allow it to be so. And so I say, and so it is. Good morning, beauties. My name is Deborah Ellis, and I'm a licensed practitioner here serving at Sierra Center for Spiritual Living. And I want to welcome you this morning. If you haven't been here with us before, we're so glad that you're here. Wherever you are welcome here. And so I'm going to read through the affirmation, and then we can read it together. Today, I embrace and embody that I already am everything I think I need. Let's read it together. Today, I embrace and embody that I already am everything I think I need. And so it is. Welcome, welcome.
street, people bustling for praise. Looking for something, some peace in the valley, some other place. Well, the prophet, he say, the kingdom's within you. He didn't say wait. Well, the road may be long, but each step is new. A step through the gate. And something is happening right here, right now. Something I made. No mystery. Oh, do you feel it? Something untamed. It's wild and it's free. It's everything around you, not down the road. It's already here. Oh, do you feel it? Creation unfolds. Creation unfolds. The road is ours, so many miracles play.
Let's take a breath together. Good morning, good morning, good morning. In ministerial school, they tell us that the two most difficult talks that we will ever give is when we're asking for money and Mother's Day. And this one might be in close competition with both of those. What an Esther moment we are living in, yes? For such a time as this. And I want to begin by reminding us that we are a radically inclusive community. And that means everybody is welcome and celebrated here. Everybody. Not based on who you vote for, not based on your political party, not based on your fashion sense or your body type or your gender identity or anything in this physical realm. Every expression of creation is welcome and celebrated here. And so I am very much aware of and sensitive to the reality that little more than half of our American culture is in some level of celebration this morning, and less, just a little less than half, is having a very different experience. Neither experience is more holy or righteous than the other. And so this morning we are talking about being, in our monthly theme, being compassionate conduits of creation of spirit. And the talk title this morning, what is God giving you? I'll just own right up front, it's a trick question. Because the truth of the matter is, God is giving us nothing. Because it already gave us everything that it has to give us. All of itself. There's nothing left for God to give us. It literally, in birthing us into being, gave us everything that it is. The real question is, what will it take for us to receive everything that we already are? What will it take for us to heal, first, the divide that lives within ourselves? This idea that there is anything separate from us. Anything. This idea that there is even a me and a you. Because in oneness, there's not. Now, granted, in this human realm, we have some understandings because we have to navigate our humanness. We have to navigate planet Earth. But what we don't have to do is be fooled by the appearance and argue for our limitation of physical form. And I think we have to begin to look at our attachment to this physical realm. As many of you, we've been experiencing something quite remarkable and yet quite painful all at the same time. I think it is really representative of this human experience as spiritual beings. That perhaps this whole journey in physical form as spiritual beings is simply this place, this activity of revealing, of owning, of standing in the truth of our magnificence beyond the physical. Beyond the physical. Now maybe it's just me, but I know I struggle with, I don't struggle with attachment. I struggle with letting go of attachment. Attachment in this physical realm seems to come quite effortlessly. Does it not? It just kind of happens. It's moving beyond that where we get challenged. So last week, I introduced the paradoxical commandments, and we're breaking those down into 2 of the 10 each week. And so today's 2, if you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. So if we apply that to our individual lives, the first place to be honest and sincere is with you. See, if I won't be honest and sincere with me, there is 0 chance that I will be honest and sincere with you. And so authenticity is where we have to start. And authenticity means unraveling this idea that I am something other than purely spiritual. Many of you know that my favorite, like page 270 and page 271 of The Science of Mind, A Philosophy of Faith, A Way of Life by Ernest Holmes, is packed with so much. So this morning I want to remind us of this thing of attachment. And I'm going to read this in gender-neutral terms. People do not exist for the purpose of making an impression upon our environment. We do not exist to express ourselves in and through our environment. There is a great difference. We do not exist to leave a lasting impression in our environment. Not at all. It is not necessary that we leave any impression. It is not necessary if we should pass on tonight that anyone should remember that we have ever lived. Now that's a tough one to swallow, isn't it? How many of us have, in moments where we have entertained the idea of our human mortality, in the secrecy of our own thoughts, wondered how many and who would show up at our celebration of life? In our humanness, that matters. And yet, Dr. Holmes is suggesting that we know something beyond that. He goes on. All that means anything is that while we live, we live. And wherever we go from here, we keep on living. He's talking about the eternality of life, not the finite expression of life. It is quite a burden lifted when we realize we do not have to move the world. It is going to move anyway. Now, I know for some of us, our ego just went, wait just a damn minute. That's okay. Your ego's part of the system. Just love it. This realization does not lessen. Now, I want you to listen very carefully here. Because part of what has happened in our precious New Thought communities is this lie that our spiritual path somehow exempts us from what's happening socially on planet Earth. This is coming direct from Ernest Holmes. Listen carefully. This realization does not lessen our duty or social obligation. It clarifies it. It enables us to do joyously and free from morbidity that which we should do in the social state. It clarifies what we have within us to be in this human realm. To step out of aligning with condition and be a joyous presence of spiritual clarity in the social realm. We don't get to avoid it. We don't get to exempt ourselves from humanity. We get to participate consciously, intentionally, from an awareness of the truth of who we are. And that means we know the truth of who everybody is. And in that truth, there is no us and them. There is I am. With this in mind, and believing that there is an infinite law of the Spirit or law of life which tends to multiply our gifts, because in so doing it multiplies its own experience, its own pleasure, its own fruition. We may assume that the spiritual person is already a success, is already supplied with everything that it needs. The potential of all things exists in the universal wholeness. Ernest Holmes also says this in the book, It's Up to You. One of the greatest stumbling blocks in any person's spiritual advancement is dishonesty. The refusal to honestly face an idea if that idea happens to not please us. This comes in part from the human tendency to take the line of least resistance, whether it be in our physical endeavors or in the operation of our mind. Confronted with an idea that repudiates one we have held for years, we go so far out of our way entirely around the idea to keep from being compelled to analyze and possibly to absorb it. Our cry is, I do not like to believe that. Back of this fear is that an idea may be forced into our consciousness, which will uncover for us our responsibility. Whichever side, whichever viewpoint, whichever box you checked on your ballot, you are no better than and no less than anyone who checked a different box. Conversation, compromise does not equal capitulation. If we, in our movement, in our philosophy, in our humanity, are unwilling to bring all of us to the table, if we are unwilling to acknowledge, to embrace, to love, and I don't mean just give voice to love, I mean love every cell in the body of the infinite with the exact same love that is instilled in us. It doesn't see differences. It doesn't mean we don't have them. It doesn't mean we don't acknowledge them. It means we don't define one another by them. It means we stop standing in this place of holier than thou hatred that says my hatred is better than your hatred. There is no room for that in the truth of who we are. It's a lie. And it's arguing for our limitations while we accuse other people. It is standing squarely in victim consciousness and blaming someone else for it. It has to stop. You are a spiritual being. Be that. Be that. Get out of any thought of self-righteous indignation. Feel what you feel. Celebrate, but not at the expense of someone else. There is nothing celebratory about insulting and finding joy in someone else's pain. That's not celebration. It's meanness. Stop it. If we are going to heal, we have to make room. We have to open our hearts. We have to open our ears. Yeah, it's easy to say, but then again, not. As a transgender man married to a woman with brown skin, it's not easy to say. Because in my human experience, it was painful that so many people voted for hate. Now, when I put into practice what I just talked about, that's a lie. That's the story that I made up out of my pain. I don't know what people voted for, but I have to take honesty. I have to take responsibility for the narrative that I wrote. That if they didn't vote my way, they must have voted for hate, because hate is so much of what I've been experiencing. Ain't a word of truth in it. I don't know. But what that thought awakens in me is the work that is mine to do. It's the truth that I have to tell me first. It is taking responsibility for that very thought. Surrendered my power and my truth to a made-up story that gave the people that I assigned the role of oppressors all of my identity and power. See, this spiritual path, sometimes it's not fun. As everything was rolling out, what kept coming to me was Howard Thurman's work, which is actually a poem about Christmas. And Howard and I collaborated. I'm going to try to pull it up here if it'll let me. It's titled The Work of Christmas. And I changed it to The Work of the Election. When the song of the celebration is still, when the color in the map is gone, when the pundits and the politicians are home, when the people are back in their communities, the work of the election begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among others, to make music in the heart. Now, I want you to know that only 5 words were changed in that. Christmas being one of them. Our work has just begun at a whole new level. And I challenge you, in the quiet of your own soul, to give up your narrative, to give up your position, to give up your rightness, and in its place to know, to move from knowing about to knowing that everything you think you need, you already are. It's more than having it. You are it. And being it, we can't have it until we know it. We experience our divinity as we become aware of it. And so do the work. Dance with those ideas of you that aren't true. Know, really know, that you are an intentional, divine, perfect idea that you are literally a desire of God's heart in physical form, with the only purpose to know your divinity, to awaken to your magnificence, and to be that. The doing will take care of itself if we will just be the truth of what we are. And as you know that about you, you have to know that about everybody, because there's only one of us here. Love will heal us. Love is healing us. Will you let it? Let's take this into prayer. As I recognize the infinite, I feel its presence. I feel its power right here. I recognize the one, the infinite, fully present in, through, and as this physical body that it's traveling in. I recognize, I feel it in this space that I call the sanctuary of Sierra Center for Spiritual Living. I recognize it, I connect with it, I experience it through those little blue parentheses on this thing I call a camera. Never bound by time and space. This one beautiful magnificence, everywhere present, having no circumference. Its very center is everywhere present. The perfect love that it is, fully infused in its creation, being the substance everything already has, all that it is in the very makeup of creation. In the oneness, in the truth of oneness, I know that I am that. I know that what is true of me is absolutely true of every expression of creation. That the very love of God is the truth, the nature, the essence of all life. This unrestricted giving of itself to itself, without qualification, without demand. And so I lift my voice, speaking my word, recognizing it is the word of the infinite. It must be speaking, because it is the only word there is. I am recalling that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And it is that word that I speak. That all of life is awakening to the truth of itself, to the soul of creation that is the essence and the activity of the one life living itself, expanding its experience of itself in every form of creation. And so I celebrate. I celebrate that and only that. The lifting up of consciousness and awareness. I celebrate. And as I celebrate, I know that there is nothing for me to do at the human level until I listen to the divine nudge that guides my every action. And so I commit myself again to listen to listen to that holy guidance, that holy yes that is bringing about an unrestricted, unfettered expression of itself. And I say yes. I invite you, if you're willing to stand in that yes, to be more than your humanness knows you can be, to stand fully in your spiritual substance and essence, that you join me as we anchor the word of the infinite together by saying, Amen. Shalom. Aho. Ashe. And so it is. Let's take another breath together. Love can't fail. It's not possible. We got this. So I just want to remind you, we are available for prayer. One of our licensed practitioners and ministerial interns, Julia Robles Scott, is going to tell us about what is available and how to access that. And then we're going to close out with our closing song, Let's Get Together. Thank you.
Julia Robles Scott. I'm one of your licensed practitioners at the Sierra Center for Spiritual Living. And I don't know if you're like me, but you may be feeling like I'm missing my spiritual community, missing being there in person with you all. And just wanted to put out this reminder that as one of your practitioners, the practitioners are available to support you and to pray with you. And you can find our information on our center's website, and you can also submit a prayer request through the website, and it's all completely confidential. So we're here for you. We love you, and just know that we're here, and reach out if you.
1, 2, 3, 4. Together we'll stand, the battle will fall. Come on, people, let's get on and put together. Come on, let's put together. Because together we will stand, everybody is part of the plan. When things go wrong, you can sometimes will. The road you travel, it seems all together. Let's work together. Come on, let's work together. Because together we will stand. Everybody is a part of the plan. Make someone happy. Make someone smile. Let's work together and make it right for the mind. Let's work together. Come on, let's work together. Because together we will stand. Everybody is a part of the plan. Hey, on down the hill, walk hand in hand. Let's take the school of life, a good place to stand.